The stars above New Colony shimmered like they always did. Commander stood on the observation deck of the military headquarters, watching the peaceful night sky. He was a tall man with tired eyes and gray hair at his temples. 20 years of military service had taught him many things. The most important lesson was simple: never underestimate your enemy. His communicator beeped. Lieutenant's voice came through, sharp and urgent. "Commander, we have incoming vessels. Unknown origin. They just appeared on our scanners." Moved quickly to the command center. The room was full of screens and blinking lights. Officers rushed around, checking data and making calls. On the main screen, he saw them. 5 massive ships, each one bigger than anything humans had ever built. They hung in space like dark clouds, blocking out the stars. "Attempts at communication?" asked. Captain Minu looked up from his station. He was young but skilled, with sharp features and quick hands. "They're broadcasting on all frequencies, sir. I'm putting it through now." The screen changed. A being appeared, tall and covered in blue-gray skin. Its eyes were large and black with no visible pupils. It wore armor that glowed with strange symbols. When it spoke, the translation software made its words clear but cold. "Primitive species of Earth colony new. I am War Chief Al of the Empire. We claim this world for our people. You have 1 cycle of your planet to surrender. Resistance is pointless. We have conquered 17 species. Your technology is weak. Your defenses are primitive. Submit now, and we will allow some of you to live as workers." The transmission ended. The command center fell silent. Everyone looked at. Studied the ships on the screen. They had superior technology, that much was clear. Their vessels used energy weapons and shields that Earth was still trying to understand. Their scanners could probably see through walls and detect heat from kilometers away. In a direct fight, humanity would lose. But was not planning a direct fight. "Open a channel," he said calmly. The alien appeared again on screen, looking surprised that the humans dared to respond. War Chief Al said, keeping his voice steady, "We are a peaceful colony. We need time to discuss your terms. Our government must make this decision. Give us 72 hours for negotiation." The alien's face showed something that might have been amusement. "You think you can negotiate? Very well, 3 of your days. Use them to prepare your surrender. We will be watching. Any military movement and we attack immediately. Our scanners see everything. Do not be foolish." The transmission cut off. Minu stood up quickly. "Sir, they're going to destroy us. We can't fight those ships." "You're right," said. "We can't fight them the way they expect us to fight, but they don't understand humans. They think technology wins wars." He turned to, "Lieutenant, activate Operation Ghost Protocol. Send the code words to all units." His eyes widened. She understood what he meant. "Sir, that's a very old strategy. Do you think it will work against aliens?" "Old doesn't mean useless," replied. "They have scanners and shields. They've conquered 17 species who probably all fought them the same way. Direct combat, clear battle lines, technology against technology." He smiled slightly. "But we evolved on Earth. We learned to hunt and hide before we learned to build. Let's teach them what that means." Within an hour, orders went out across the colony. The military moved, but not how they expected. Soldiers didn't gather in bases. They didn't move to defensive positions in large groups. Instead, they scattered into the forests, the mountains, and the cities. They took supplies that had been prepared for exactly this scenario. Private Jinnah received her orders in the barracks. She was a sniper, trained on Earth in the old traditions. Her instructor had been a hunter before joining the military. He taught her patience, stillness, and how to read the land. Now she packed her rifle and special equipment. The suit felt rough in her hands, covered with local plants and materials that matched the forest perfectly. "Remember," her squad leader told the team, "the aliens can see heat and movement, so we become cold and still. They expect armies, we give them ghosts." Across the colony, similar scenes played out. Sergeant led his urban warfare unit into the city, but they didn't set up obvious defenses. Instead, they prepared positions that looked like rubble and ruins. They studied the broken buildings and learned to blend with them. Major gathered his special operations team. "They're watching from space," he told them. "They see our cities, our roads, our obvious structures. They think they know where we are." He pointed to a map showing underground tunnels and hidden facilities. "But they're looking in the wrong places." The ships orbited above, their powerful scanners sweeping the planet's surface. Inside the main vessel, Al studied the readings with satisfaction. The human cities showed normal activity, civilians going about their business. No military buildup, no army gathering. The sensors showed exactly what he expected, a weak, frightened species realizing they could not win. "They accept their fate," his second-in-command said. "No military signatures detected, only normal civilian heat patterns and movements." Al nodded. "As expected. In 3 days we land and take control. This will be the fastest conquest yet." But on the surface, Commander watched the ships through binoculars, not electronic scopes that the aliens might detect. Around him, the forest looked empty and peaceful. Birds sang in the trees. Leaves rustled in the wind. To any scanner, to any camera, there was nothing but nature. Lowered the binoculars and looked at the tree next to him. To normal eyes, it was just a tree. But if someone looked very carefully, they might notice the slight irregularity in the bark pattern. The way certain shadows didn't move quite right. The small, almost invisible breathing holes in what looked like moss and bark. Stood there pressed against the tree, covered in materials that made him invisible. His special suit used no electronics that the aliens could detect, just fabric, natural materials, and human cleverness. He had been standing there, perfectly still, for 3 hours. He could stay there for 3 more if needed. This was Operation Ghost Protocol, not technology against technology, not strength against strength. This was making the enemy fight something they had never encountered before, an enemy that could become invisible without machines, an enemy that could wait with endless patience, an enemy that understood the best weapon was sometimes simply not being seen. The 72 hours had begun, and they had no idea what was waiting for them. The 72 hours passed. War Chief Al stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the planet below. His scanners still showed no military movement. The humans seemed to be accepting their fate peacefully. "Begin landing operations," he commanded. "Send the ground forces to the main city. We will establish control quickly and move to the other settlements." 20 transport ships descended through the atmosphere. They carried 3,000 soldiers, the elite warriors who had broken the defenses of 17 worlds. Their armor was advanced, equipped with motion sensors, heat vision, and targeting computers. Each soldier could fight like 10 of any primitive species. The ships landed in a wide valley 5 kilometers from the city. The ramps opened, and the soldiers marched out in perfect formation. Al watched from orbit, satisfied. This would be simple. But in the forest surrounding the valley, watched through eyes that had not blinked in 4 hours. His scout team was spread across 2 kilometers, each person completely invisible in their positions. They had arrived 3 days ago and had not moved since. The aliens marched past them, close enough that could hear their communication devices and the mechanical sound of their armor. He waited. Patience was everything. His grandfather had been a hunter who could wait all day for a single deer, had learned from him. The aliens kept moving, never knowing that human eyes watched every step. Through a secure radio system hidden underground, sent a single click. 1 click meant enemy sighted, 2 clicks would mean enemy engaged. Silence meant stay hidden. Commander received the signal at his hidden command post. It was buried 3 meters underground, covered with natural materials that blocked all scans. "They're moving toward the city," he said quietly to Minu, "and let them think they're winning." The column marched through the forest path. The soldiers talked to each other in their language, confident and relaxed. Their sensors showed nothing but trees and wildlife. Their commanders had assured them this would be easy. Then the first soldier disappeared. One moment there were 40 soldiers in the rear guard. The next moment there were 39. No sound, no weapon fire, no explosion. One soldier simply was not there anymore. The formation stopped. The commander activated all sensors. "Full scan," he ordered. The motion detectors, heat sensors, and life sign readers all powered up. They showed nothing unusual: trees, bushes, small animals, no humans, no threats. Probably a technical glitch, the commander decided. Equipment malfunction, continue march. But 300 meters later it happened again. Another soldier gone. This time several soldiers saw it happen. They saw their comrade walking ahead of them. Then a shadow moved, though it might have been just the wind in the leaves. The soldier stumbled. Hands came out of the ground itself, covered in dirt and plants. The soldier was pulled down into what looked like solid earth, too fast to scream. When the others ran to help, they found a small hole, perfectly camouflaged, leading to a tunnel below. The tunnel was empty. Private Jinnah waited in her position 800 meters away. She had watched the confusion through her scope. Her suit made her invisible against the hillside. Even her rifle was covered in materials that matched the grass and rocks. She had not moved in 6 hours. Her body had become part of the landscape. Through her scope, she watched an officer scanning the area with handheld equipment. He was looking for heat signatures, but Jinnah's special suit absorbed and dispersed her body heat slowly over a large area. To his scanner, she looked like a warm rock in the sun, nothing more. She aimed carefully. The rifle was not electronic. It used old mechanical systems that produced no energy signature. When she fired, the bullet made only a soft sound, less than a bird call. The suppressor was perfect. The officer fell. His soldiers spun around, weapons ready, scanning everywhere. Their computers told them the shot came from a certain direction. They fired their energy weapons at that spot, burning the hillside. But Jinnah was not there. She had fired from a different position, using mirrors to aim, an old sniper trick. While the aliens destroyed empty ground, she remained hidden, watching. She marked 2 more targets and waited. The column was now nervous. They had lost 3 soldiers and could not find the enemy. Their commander called for air support. 2 attack craft screamed overhead, scanning the forest with powerful sensors. Captain Ara's team heard them coming. They were spread across the forest floor, covered in leaves and dirt. Each person had a small thermal blanket under them that blocked heat from reaching the ground. They looked like fallen logs, piles of leaves, or natural depressions in the earth. The aircraft sensors showed nothing but normal forest. The computers identified thousands of heat sources, all animals, trees warmed by the sun, or rocks, but no human soldiers, no military equipment. The pilots reported to Al, no enemy detected. The ground forces must be imagining things. Al frowned. He had never encountered soldiers who reported enemies that were not there. He decided to increase pressure. Land the main force. If there are human fighters, overwhelming numbers will force them to reveal themselves. 1,000 more soldiers landed. They spread out across the forest in a wide line. They would sweep the entire area and find these hiding humans. Their scanners were set to maximum sensitivity. Their weapons were armed. They moved forward slowly and carefully. What they did not know was that the forest itself had become their enemy. Sergeant's specialized team had spent the past 3 days preparing the terrain. They had created false trails that led to dead ends. They had marked trees with scents that confused the alien sensors. They had buried supplies and weapons in waterproof containers under rocks and streams. And they had learned to move like the wind. When the aliens looked left, they moved right. When scanners swept one direction, they were already in another. They used the natural sounds of the forest to mask their movements. A breaking branch became the sound of an animal. A rustle of leaves was just the wind. Lieutenant and her psychological warfare unit added to the confusion. They had set up speakers hidden in trees, so small and well camouflaged that even close inspection missed them. These speakers played sounds, footsteps where there was no one, voices calling from empty locations, weapon fire that came from nowhere. The soldiers began to panic. Their training had prepared them for direct combat. They understood enemies who charged forward, who fired back, who could be seen and targeted. But this was different. This was fighting shadows, fighting nothing, fighting a forest that seemed alive and hostile. One squad leader reported to his commander, "We are surrounded by enemies, but we cannot see them. Our sensors are useless. Request permission to retreat." The commander was angry. "There are no enemies. Your sensors show nothing. Your eyes show nothing. Control yourself." But even as he said this, two more soldiers disappeared. One was pulled into a hole covered by leaves. Another was struck by something from above and fell unconscious. When his comrades reached him seconds later, he was gone. Only a small trace of blood on a rock showed where he had been. Major watched from his hidden position. His team specialized in close-quarters combat and infiltration. They used no weapons that made sounds or light, only knives, compressed air tools, and their hands. They could kill silently and disappear like smoke. Himself had eliminated 6 in the past hour. Each time he waited until the target was isolated, even for just seconds. He moved like water, quiet and quick. His camouflage was perfect, a combination of adaptive fabric and natural materials. When he stood still, even human eyes struggled to see him. By nightfall, the forces had lost 50 soldiers. Not one human body had been found. Not one human had been seen. The aliens gathered in a defensive circle, all sensors pointing outward, weapons ready. But in the darkness around them, hundreds of human soldiers waited. Silent, patient, invisible. They had become part of the night, part of the earth, part of the forest itself. And they were just beginning to show what it meant to fight an enemy who had mastered the ancient art of not being seen. War Chief Al received the reports and did not understand. How could a primitive species fight this way? Where was their technology? Where were their armies? He increased the orbital scans to maximum power. The results showed only forests, rocks, and wildlife. He did not know that humans had learned long ago. The best technology sometimes was not technology at all. It was simply knowing how to disappear. War Chief Al made a decision. The forests were clearly dangerous for his troops. The humans were using terrain to their advantage. So he would remove that advantage. He would fight in the city, where there was no forest to hide in, no wilderness to provide cover. "Send forces to the human settlements," he ordered. "Secure the buildings. The humans cannot hide in open streets." They did not know that Sergeant had been waiting for exactly this decision. His urban warfare unit had spent 3 days preparing the city for battle, but not in any way the aliens would expect. The city of Nu had been partially evacuated. The remaining civilians were in shelters deep underground. The streets looked empty and abandoned. Buildings stood silent. To the scanners, it appeared to be a ghost town, easy to occupy. 600 soldiers marched into the city at dawn. Their sensors swept the buildings, looking for heat signatures and movement. They found nothing suspicious. Some thermal readings showed what might be people in basements, probably civilians hiding in fear. The soldiers began to secure each building systematically. Sergeant watched them from inside a pile of rubble. He was not behind the rubble. He was not next to the rubble. He was part of the rubble. His body was covered in dust, broken concrete, and torn fabric that matched the destroyed building perfectly. His face was painted with gray and brown colors that looked exactly like dirty stone. He had been lying there for 12 hours, not moving, barely breathing. They walked past him. One alien stood less than 2 meters away, scanning the area. His equipment detected nothing unusual, just rubble from damaged buildings, just debris from some past explosion. He moved on. When the alien squad turned the corner, moved. Not fast, not suddenly. He moved like dust settling, like debris shifting, slow enough that no motion detector would trigger, quiet enough that no sound sensor would register. He reached his hand to a pile of rubble next to him. The rubble moved. A head emerged, also covered in dust and concrete coloring. Private Jinnah, who had moved from the forest to the city, gave a small nod. Around them, 20 other piles of debris slowly shifted. Each one was a human soldier who had mastered the art of looking like nothing important. The soldiers continued to search the buildings. They entered what looked like abandoned structures. Inside, they found destroyed furniture, broken walls, and scattered debris. Their scanners detected no threats, but they did not know that the furniture was arranged specifically to create hiding spots. The broken walls had holes that soldiers could fire through. The debris concealed weapons and supplies. Captain Ara's team was positioned in a building that looked completely destroyed. The roof had collapsed. The walls were cracked. Everything inside appeared to be ruins. They marked it as cleared and moved on. What they missed was that the collapse was carefully staged. The rubble was held by cables that could be released. The broken walls had hidden passages, and in the basement, 40 soldiers waited in complete silence. They set up a command post in the city center, in what appeared to be the most secure building. They placed guards at every entrance. Their sensors created a detection grid that would alert them to any approaching enemy. They felt safe. Major smiled from his position across the street. He was inside what looked like a burned-out vehicle. The metal shell was real, but it had been carefully modified. The interior was lined with materials that blocked thermal scans. Small holes gave him a perfect view of the command post. He had been there since before the aliens arrived. He spoke into a hidden communicator, his voice barely a whisper. "Team 2, are you in position?" "Confirmed," came the reply. "We are inside the building, maintenance tunnel access." They did not know that beneath the city was a network of tunnels, storm drains, old subway systems, utility passages. The humans had expanded these over the years. Now they formed a hidden highway that soldiers could use to move anywhere without being seen. As night fell, the commander felt confident. They had secured the city with no resistance. The humans were clearly too afraid to fight. Tomorrow they would begin formal occupation procedures. Then the attacks began. A guard on the eastern perimeter suddenly fell. His squad immediately responded, scanning for enemies. They saw nothing. Their sensors detected nothing. But 2 more guards fell one after another. No shots heard. No weapons detected, just soldiers collapsing. Sergeant and his team had moved into attack positions after dark. They did not shoot with guns. Instead, they used modified weapons that fired tranquilizer darts powered by compressed air. Silent. No energy signature. No muzzle flash. The darts were made from materials that dissolved in the body, leaving no evidence. The confused fired their energy weapons at shadows, lighting up the streets with bright beams. But they were shooting at nothing. The humans had already moved to new positions, using the chaos and light to mask their movements. Inside the command post, the commander activated all defenses. Force fields went up around the building. Automated turrets deployed, scanning for targets. The building became a fortress. Major watched and waited. He had expected this. The commander had fallen into the trap. "Team 2, execute," he whispered. Below the command post, in the maintenance tunnels, Lieutenant led a squad of infiltration specialists. They had spent the past 6 hours slowly and carefully moving through the underground network. They wore special suits that made no sound when they moved. Every piece of equipment was wrapped in sound-dampening material. They reached a point directly under the command post. Above them was a ventilation shaft. They had checked it with scanners, but the shaft appeared to be sealed and blocked. What they had not detected was that the blockage was made from materials that looked solid to their sensors but could be carefully removed. His team took 2 hours to open a passage through the blockage. They moved slowly, making no sound, creating no vibrations. When they finished, they had a route into the building that the aliens did not know existed. The team climbed up, one person every 10 minutes. Patience was more important than speed. Each soldier waited until the corridor above was clear before moving. They used tiny cameras to check around corners. They timed their movements to the patrol patterns of the guards. By midnight, 12 human soldiers were inside the fortress that the thought was impregnable. They split into 3 teams. One team moved toward the power systems. One team went to communications. The third team, led by, headed for the main computer core. They used a strategy that they had never encountered. They did not try to avoid all contact. Instead, they disguised themselves as part of the environment. When a patrol approached, the humans pressed against walls, into shadows, behind equipment. Their camouflage was so perfect that the aliens walked right past them. One soldier stood against a gray wall, wearing gray clothing, his face painted gray. When a guard shined a light on him, the guard saw only the wall. The human's breathing was so controlled, his stillness so complete, that even direct observation could not distinguish him from his surroundings. The infiltration teams reached their targets. In the power room, soldiers attached devices to the main generators. These were not bombs. They were slow disruption units that would make the power fluctuate irregularly, creating system failures that looked like technical problems. At the communications center, another team carefully modified the alien equipment. They added small signal jammers that would activate randomly. They corrupted data files. They changed security codes. All of it was done slowly and carefully to look like natural system degradation, not sabotage. Lieutenant reached the computer core. She inserted a small device into one of the access ports. It was made from biological materials that the alien scanners read as harmless organic matter, but it contained a human-made virus specifically designed for systems. It would spread slowly, copying itself, hiding in the system architecture. The entire infiltration took 6 hours. When dawn came, the human soldiers extracted the same way they entered. Slow, patient, silent. They left no trace of their presence. The commander woke to find his systems malfunctioning. Power failures, communication errors, computer glitches. His technicians assured him it was just the stress of multiple systems running continuously in an alien environment. They would fix it soon. But the problems only got worse, and outside the attacks continued. Guards disappeared. Patrols were ambushed by enemies they could not see. The city that looked empty and safe had become a nightmare. War Chief Al watched the reports with growing anger and confusion. His forces were being destroyed by an enemy that seemed to be invisible. How was this possible? Where was the human army? Where were their weapons, their vehicles, their clear military presence? He did not understand that he was fighting an enemy that had learned, over thousands of years of evolution and warfare, that the best way to win was not to be the strongest or have the best technology. It was to simply not be seen until the perfect moment to strike. And in urban warfare, every shadow could hide a warrior. Every pile of rubble could be a soldier. Every empty building could become a fortress. The humans had turned the city itself into a weapon, and for all their advanced technology, had no defense against an enemy that could become invisible by simply standing still and understanding how to blend with their surroundings. The battle was not being won by the side with better weapons. It was being won by the side that better understood how to disappear. War Chief Al had conquered 17 species across 12 star systems. He had broken defensive lines that were thought unbreakable. His forces had defeated armies 10 times their size. But now, for the first time in his military career, he felt something he had not experienced in decades: fear. His invasion force of 3,000 soldiers had been reduced to less than 2,000 in just 5 days, and he had not seen the enemy. Not once. His soldiers reported ghosts, shadows, and voices from nowhere. His officers were requesting to retreat. His technicians could not explain the system failures. Everything was falling apart, and he did not know why. He called an emergency meeting with his senior commanders. They gathered in the flagship's war room, looking exhausted and confused. "Explain to me," Al said slowly, "how we are losing to primitives who have no visible army, no energy weapons, and no defensive shields." His second-in-command, a veteran of many campaigns, spoke carefully. "War Chief, I believe we have made an incorrect assumption. We assumed these humans would fight like the other species we encountered, but they do not. They use methods we have never seen." "What methods?" Al demanded. "Our sensors detect nothing. Our scans show only empty terrain. How do they hide from our technology?" "I do not think they hide from our technology," the commander replied. "I think they hide from us, from our eyes, from our expectations. They use no electronic equipment that we can detect. They move without creating patterns that our computers recognize. They become part of the environment itself." Al stared at him. "That is impossible. No intelligent species can simply disappear." But even as he said this, a report came in. Another patrol had vanished. 15 soldiers gone without a trace. The last communication had been routine, then silence. On the ground, Lieutenant Psychological Warfare Unit was executing the next phase of their plan. They had studied behavior patterns and identified their weaknesses. The aliens relied heavily on their sensors and computers. They trusted their technology more than their own instincts. This made them predictable. His team used this against them. They set up holographic projectors in the forest, small devices powered by batteries that the alien scanners classified as harmless power cells. These projectors created images of human soldiers in the distance, just at the edge of visibility. When patrols investigated, they found nothing. But the stress of seeing enemies that disappeared was affecting their morale. The team also recorded sounds, footsteps on different terrains, voices speaking in Korean, weapons being loaded. These sounds played randomly from hidden speakers throughout the areas where patrolled. The aliens would hear an army approaching and prepare for battle, but nothing would come. Hours of maximum alert with no attack, then more sounds from a different direction. Private Jinnah had evolved her tactics. She no longer just sniped from fixed positions. Now she used a technique called shoot and move that her instructors had taught her. She would take one shot, then immediately move to a position 50 meters away. By the time the aliens responded to the first shot, she was already in a completely different location, hidden again, watching them search the wrong area. But her most effective technique was simpler. She would position herself where soldiers could almost see her, not quite visible but almost, a shape in the shadows that might be a person or might be nothing. The aliens would stare, trying to decide if it was an enemy. Their sensors would say nothing was there, but their eyes said different. The stress of not knowing drove them to make mistakes. Colonel introduced a new innovation that changed everything. His research team had been studying Earth animals, specifically octopuses and chameleons. They developed a suit that used advanced materials to change color and pattern based on the surroundings. It was not fully electronic, so it produced minimal energy signature. Instead, it used a combination of special fabrics and chemical reactions triggered by heat and pressure. The first soldiers to wear these suits became nearly invisible even when moving. In a forest, the suit showed bark patterns and leaf colors. In the city, it shifted to concrete gray and brick red. Against the sky, it became blue and white. It was not perfect, but combined with proper technique, it made soldiers incredibly hard to spot. Captain Minu led a demonstration for Commander. 5 soldiers wearing the new suit stood in an open area, could see them clearly. Then they activated the suits and stopped moving. Within seconds, they seemed to disappear. could still see them if he looked very carefully, but his eyes wanted to skip over them to see them as part of the background. "This changes everything," said. "How many suits do we have?" 200 now, Minyu replied. "We can produce more, but it takes time. Make as many as possible, and give them to our best infiltrators." Major received one of the new suits. He took it into the field immediately. His mission was bold: infiltrate the landing zone and sabotage their remaining transport ships. The landing zone was heavily guarded. 50 soldiers, automated defense turrets, sensor nets, and constant patrols. It should have been impossible to penetrate, but had learned something important about they believed their technology was perfect. They trusted it completely. He approached the perimeter wearing the adaptive suit. His movements were slow and deliberate. He used the natural rhythm of the wind and the small movements of plants and dust to mask his advance. When guards looked his direction, he froze. The suit made him look like a bush, a rock, or a shadow depending on where he stood. It took him 3 hours to cross 50 meters, but patience was a weapon they did not have. Their guards watched their sensors, not their surroundings. When alarms did not sound, they assumed all was safe. Reached the first transport ship. He planted small devices on the landing gear and engine systems. These devices would not explode. Instead, they would cause mechanical failures at random times. A ship would seem fine, then suddenly lose power mid-flight. Another would have navigation errors. It would look like poor maintenance, not sabotage. He moved to the second ship, then the third. In total, he spent 9 hours inside the enemy base, moving between ships, planting devices, gathering intelligence. Several times, soldiers walked within meters of him. Once, a guard actually looked directly at him. But the combination of the adaptive suit, perfect stillness, and strategic positioning made invisible. When he finally left the base, moving with the same painful slowness, he carried detailed information about equipment, communication protocols, and tactical plans. This intelligence would be invaluable. Back in orbit, War Chief Al received more bad news. 3 transport ships had malfunctioned. One had crashed during takeoff, killing all aboard. 2 others were grounded with mysterious technical failures. His mechanics could not explain why systems that worked perfectly yesterday were failing today. Then came the report that shook him most. His personal guard, a soldier who had been with him for 10 years, had disappeared. Not on patrol, not in battle. The soldier had been standing guard outside Al's quarters on the flagship. He was there one moment. Security footage showed him at his post. Then, for exactly 7 seconds, the camera experienced interference. When it cleared, the guard was gone. The ship was searched completely. No intruders were found. No signs of struggle. The soldier had simply vanished from one of the most secure locations on the ship. What Al did not know was that Lieutenant had led a team onto his flagship days ago. They had used stolen uniforms and a biological spray that mimicked scent markers. To the alien security systems, they appeared to be crew members. To the guards who saw them, they looked like maintenance workers or technicians. No one questioned them because their confidence and behavior matched the expectations. They had taken the guard, quietly and efficiently, while the camera experienced technical difficulties caused by the devices they had planted during their first infiltration. The guard was now a prisoner, being questioned about tactics and technology. Al stood on his bridge looking at the planet below. He had come to conquer. Now he was barely holding his position. His soldiers were terrified to go outside. His officers were requesting evacuation. His technology, his superior weapons, his advanced scanners. None of it mattered against an enemy that simply refused to be visible. He finally understood what he was facing. These humans had not evolved to be strong or fast or technologically advanced. They had evolved to be persistent hunters and clever survivors. On their world, they had been both predator and prey. They learned to hunt creatures stronger than them by being patient and invisible. They learned to hide from creatures that wanted to eat them by becoming one with their environment. And now they were using millions of years of evolution against an enemy that had never encountered anything like it. They had conquered species that fought with honor, with clear battle lines, with technology matching technology. But humans did not fight that way. They fought like their ancestors, hidden, patient, striking from nowhere, disappearing like smoke. For the first time since the invasion began, Al considered the possibility that he might lose. Not because the humans were stronger, not because their weapons were better, but because they had mastered something his species had never learned, the art of becoming invisible without needing technology to do it. Commander stood in his underground command center, reading the latest intelligence reports. The forces were breaking. Morale was at critical levels. Supply ships refused to land because 3 had already been sabotaged. The aliens were running out of food and ammunition because they did not dare send convoys through terrain where invisible enemies waited. They are requesting reinforcements from their home fleet, Captain Menu reported. The message was intercepted. Al is asking for another 5,000 soldiers. What was the response? Asked. The home fleet wants to know how 3,000 elite soldiers are being defeated by a primitive colony with no visible army. Minu smiled slightly. Al could not give them a good answer. Lieutenant entered the room. Sir, we have confirmation. The command has authorized a full retreat. They will evacuate all forces within 48 hours. Nodded slowly. Do we let them go peacefully or do we make a statement? A statement, sir, said firmly. If we let them leave quietly, they might think we just got lucky. They might come back with a different strategy. We need to make sure they understand exactly why they lost. Agreed. Execute final phase. Let us teach them a lesson they will never forget. The forces gathered at the landing zone for evacuation. Every soldier was present, weapons ready, sensors at maximum. They were not going to be caught off guard during retreat. War Chief Al watched from orbit, relieved that this nightmare would soon end. Then he saw something that made his blood run cold. On the main, showing the landing zone from above, shapes appeared. They simply materialized out of the ground, the trees, the rocks themselves. Hundreds of human soldiers stood up from positions they had occupied for days. They had been there all along, completely invisible, even to the sensors and cameras. The soldiers on the ground panicked. They raised weapons, but the humans did not attack. They just stood there, surrounding the landing zone completely, silent, still, watching. Sergeant stood with his urban warfare team, their suits shifting from ground camouflage to normal military colors. Around them, the earth seemed to come alive as more soldiers revealed themselves. Some had been buried under shallow dirt. Others had been inside artificial rocks. Some had simply been lying in the open, trusting their camouflage completely. Private Jinnah lowered her rifle and stood on the hill where she had hidden for 7 days. She had not moved from that position except to eliminate targets. She had eaten, slept, and performed all necessary functions without ever leaving her spot. The discipline required was incredible, but it was a discipline that humans had perfected over. Major appeared from a position only 5 meters from the perimeter. He had been there for 3 days, watching every move they made, gathering final intelligence. The aliens had walked past him countless times. Some had stood next to him while talking on communicators. None had known he was there. Captain Ara's team revealed themselves from positions inside the landing zone itself. They had infiltrated during the night and had been waiting under debris and inside damaged equipment. If the order had come, they could have destroyed every ship before any could react. The message was clear. The humans had always been in control. Every move they made had been watched. Every position they held was surrounded. They had never been safe, not even for a moment. They had lost before they even landed, they just had not known it. Commander's voice broadcast on all communication frequencies. War Chief Al, you invaded our world believing we were primitive. You thought advanced technology would guarantee victory, but you failed to understand what makes humans dangerous. We evolved on a world where survival meant learning to hide from predators and hunt prey smarter than us. We spent millions of years perfecting the art of patience, camouflage, and invisible warfare. Your technology cannot detect what your eyes do not understand. Your sensors cannot find enemies who become the environment itself. Paused, letting the words sink in. You may leave now, but take this message to your empire and to the galaxy. Humanity does not need energy shields or advanced weapons to defend ourselves. We have something better. We have the ability to disappear, to wait, to strike from nowhere. Tell them that trying to invade human worlds is not a battle. It is hunting something that hunts you back. Tell them that when they scan our planets and see nothing, they should be terrified because that means we are already there, watching them, waiting. The ships took off quickly, carrying their defeated soldiers. They left behind equipment, supplies, and weapons in their rush to escape. As they climbed toward orbit, every soldier looked down at the planet, seeing the hundreds of human figures standing in clear view now. They wondered how many more had never revealed themselves, how many were still hidden, still watching. In orbit, War Chief Al prepared his official report. He sat at his desk for hours, trying to find words to explain what had happened. How did he tell his superiors that he had lost to an enemy he never saw? How did he explain that human soldiers could hide in plain sight using nothing but fabric, paint, and patience? He finally wrote, "The humans possess a form of warfare that renders our conventional tactics useless. They do not rely on technology for concealment. Instead, they use biological and psychological techniques developed over their entire evolutionary history. They can remain motionless for days. They can disguise themselves as terrain features. They can infiltrate secure locations without triggering any alarm. They fight without honor, without clear battle lines, without warning. They are not warriors in any traditional sense. They are something more dangerous. They are natural predators who have learned to hide while hunting." He paused, then added, "Recommendation: do not engage humans in ground combat under any circumstances. Their camouflage abilities make ground warfare unwinnable. They turn every environment into a maze of invisible threats. Recommend full planetary bombardment from orbit as only viable military option against human worlds." But even as he wrote this, he knew the truth. The humans had infiltrated his flagship multiple times. If they wanted, they could have killed him in his sleep. They had chosen to let him live, to let him deliver this message. That terrified him more than anything. The report reached the high command within days. They read it with disbelief, then anger, then slowly growing understanding. They accessed the combat footage, the sensor logs, the testimony of soldiers who survived. One video showed a human soldier standing against a wall for 4 hours while guards walked past repeatedly. The soldier had been there all along, visible in the footage when examined closely, but somehow invisible to every guard and every sensor. The High Command sent the report to the Galactic Council, the governing body that managed interaction between space-faring species. The Council convened an emergency session. Ambassador represented Earth at the session. He was not a soldier, but he had been briefed extensively. He stood before representatives of 43 species and explained human warfare doctrine. "Our species developed in an environment filled with predators more powerful than us," he said calmly. "We survived by learning to hide and hunt simultaneously. This is not technology. This is not training. This is our nature. Every human child plays hiding games. Every human has the instinct to freeze when danger approaches. Every culture on Earth developed warriors who specialized in ambush, camouflage, and patient observation." He showed videos of human military training, soldiers disappearing into forests, snipers becoming invisible on rooftops, special forces moving through enemy territory undetected. "We call this stealth warfare. We have practiced it for thousands of years. And now we can combine ancient techniques with modern materials to create soldiers who are invisible to even the most advanced sensors. The council members watched in silence. Many of them came from species that had never developed such tactics. Their worlds had different evolutionary pressures. Some evolved as herd animals that relied on numbers and strength. Others developed as solitary predators that used size and power. Very few had learned to become invisible. A senior council member, an ancient being from a species that had been exploring space, spoke. Your species is unique. Most intelligent species develop clear social structures, obvious communication, and direct confrontation methods. But you humans develop something different. You learn to deceive, to hide, to strike from shadow. This makes you concerning. Ambassador nodded. We understand your concern, but we did not choose our evolution. We simply adapted to our environment. Now, we ask the Council to make a formal declaration. Earth and all human colonies are under special protection. Any species that attempts invasion will face an enemy they cannot see, cannot predict, and cannot defeat using conventional warfare. The vote was unanimous. The Council created a new designation in the Galactic database, Apex Camouflage Species. Only 3 species in known space received this designation, and humans were the only one that had mastered it without technological assistance. The database entry for Earth read, Warning: humans possess natural and trained abilities in concealment, stealth, and ambush tactics that exceed technological detection capabilities. Ground combat operations against human forces are not recommended. Species demonstrates unprecedented patience, environmental adaptation, and psychological warfare techniques. Threat assessment: extreme in defensive operations. Do not engage without full understanding of human camouflage capabilities. Back on Nu, Commander gathered his forces for a ceremony. Soldiers who had spent days in invisible positions, who had eliminated enemies they never saw them, who had infiltrated impossible locations, stood in formation. They looked like ordinary people. No special armor, no obvious weapons, just regular humans who had perfected the ancient art of not being seen. We won this battle not with strength or technology, told them. We won because we understood something fundamental. The best warrior is not the one who defeats all enemies. It is the one who defeats enemies without ever being seen. Today, we taught the galaxy a lesson. Humanity's greatest weapon is not what we can build. It is what we can become. He looked up at the stars where the fleet was fleeing. They came expecting a quick victory over primitives. They learned that humans are not primitive. We are simply patient. And patience, combined with the ability to disappear, is more powerful than any weapon. Private Jinnah stood in formation, thinking about the long hours hidden on that hillside. The stillness, the waiting, the perfect moment to strike. It was hard, it was uncomfortable, but it was also natural. Every human understood hiding. Every human could wait. Every human could become invisible if they tried hard enough. That was humanity's true strength. Not that they were the strongest or had the best technology, but that they could become ghosts, shadows, and wind when they needed to. And in a galaxy full of species that fought with honor and clear tactics, the ability to simply disappear was the most dangerous power of all. The war was over. They were gone. But the story spread across the galaxy. The story of how humans defended their world not by being seen, but by refusing to be seen. And every species that heard the story remembered one important lesson. When you look at human territory and see nothing, be afraid. Because that means the humans are already there, watching you, waiting, invisible.